Episode 31, Building a New Model with Permaculture.
Welcome to Thriving with Nature, a podcast that gives you the tools you need to live a modern lifestyle that helps regenerate our planet. And now your host, Hayley Weatherburn.
Good morning, Thrivers. Welcome to this week's episode. It's been a while since I've done a thought download episode. I've had so many amazing interviews recently. And so today I wanted to share with you a little bit of what's going on in my mind. It's not hard. I generally try and avoid looking through Facebook, and I use it for some of my social media for Thriving with Nature. So unfortunately, I do go down that tunnel sometimes, and I have of recent. It's not hard. It doesn't take long for you to see the diversity that's going on at the moment, or like the segregation of quite big, what people think about what's going on, and it just illustrates, it's just showing there's a lot of fear in the world at the moment. There's a lot of anger of being locked in. There's so much. You all know, you're living in this planet. So I wanted to share, I've mentioned this quote, and it's a big quote that I live my life by Buckminster Fuller. And it talks about, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a model that makes the existing model obsolete. And so it's something that I've always believed in. I don't agree with, fighting and anger. And I know there's bad things in the world. And yes, I'm a bit of an optimist. And I do like to focus more on the positive than the negative. I don't like to put my head in the sand. I acknowledge when, things aren't right. That's not what it's about. I just don't think blaming the way we are or blaming others for the situations we're in, whether you want to call them organizations and all that kind of stuff, is helpful. I don't think it moves us forward as a human society. So I was contemplating, what is it? How do we move forward? And what is this new system that makes the old system obsolete? Well, interestingly, I was revisiting some of my permaculture studies. I did a permaculture design course with the amazing Nick Rattar here in Bali a couple of years ago, where I learned about the 3 ethics and the 12 principles of permaculture. And what I found interesting is that permaculture can be it's almost a way of life, not just necessarily how you grow how you grow your garden in your home area. And I want to show you why, because when I read through the 3 ethics and the 12 principles, we can actually, if we switch to this way of living, how would our world be? And coming off the back of the interview I did last week with Norm up at the Bali Eco Lodge, Sarambuana Bali Eco Lodge, who has designed this mini universe in this Eco Lodge resort that's connected with the community, that just integrates the peacefulness and the serenity and alignment with nature is palpable. It's just absolutely divine. And he's based this model on permaculture. And I think that's sort of sparked my revisiting of the principles and everything. And so let me read to you. For those of you who haven't heard of permaculture, it was first come together by Bill Mollison and David Holmgren in Australia, in Tasmania, actually, where some of my family live. And yeah, it came about, I believe David Holmgren was a student. He was living in Bill Holmgren's house at the time, and together their passionate interests, they sort of developed these concepts of permaculture, and it ended up spreading around the world. So let me read the first 3 ethics of permaculture. Is to care for the planet, care for people, and fair share. So those 3 ethics, if you took those ethics as the sort of way we looked at COVID, the way we looked at all sorts of, different matters of the world, do we look at, are we caring for the planet by locking everyone in? In some ways, yes. I mean, we talk about the dolphins in Venice and things like that. But are we caring for the people? And is it fair share? Is it really helping people over? I don't know the answer to this, and I'm more want to ponder and provoke some thoughts are out there. But is it overall, is it fair share? By locking everyone down, is that a way that we can live? So it's those are the 3 ethics. But let's think about the 12 principles. Let's think about as a global, or maybe not even a global, just even, community. I think it starts small and it grows big. So you can go and create your own property that's based on the principles of permaculture. That's a great way to start. And then invite the community to also create, align with these principles, and if they feel. So the first principle, which is one of my favorite ones, is observe and interact. On a small scale, you come in, if you're about to, you're putting a veggie garden somewhere, you observe and interact as to where do you think it's going to be? Where's the sun lying? All those kind of things. I've gone through observation in a previous episode. You interact a bit and sort of then step back and observe. Did that make things worse? Did that make things better if I put that there? For example, I'm observing my mango tree outside my window right now, and I interacted with the mango tree. I knew I needed more sun on my living supplement garden, but I also knew the mango was about to fruit soon. And it was such a toss it up and turn of whether or not to cut a hole so I got more sun. And I ended up cutting a big chunk of this mango tree. And now I'm observing that this time last year, there were so many mangoes already growing on this tree. And I've only found a couple of bunches of these tiny little green mangoes starting to grow. And it really makes me realize that it wasn't the greatest of decisions, but of the 2 things, I wouldn't have had sun in my garden. So it's really quite interesting. So observe and interact. And right now, observe and interact the community that is being locked down. Is it a mistake? Like, is it the best of 2 worst things that you have to decide between? The fact that I had to sacrifice some mangoes for some sun, or do I leave it so that the mango tree still grows the mangoes and I sacrifice the living supplement garden? So it's like, is locking people away, is it just the best of the options? Potentially, it could be, but we don't know. But it's just observing and interacting. Is this the best for our society right now? 2 is catch and store energy. So this is about, harnessing renewables, the catching and store energy. That's just growing your own fruit and veggies. That's a type of energy that we eat, and it gives us energy. Catching and storing the sun's energy. Maybe you catch and store a water type of energy, but life needs energy. We need energy to move. A lot of our things need energy to move. That is a big principle. And we kind of, we know how to do that, but are we doing it in the best possible ways right now? Number 3 is obtain a yield. So obtaining a yield, it can be things like growing your garden and bringing the food in. So that's an obvious yield. It's the first thing you probably think of. But it's also, are we obtaining non-tangible yields? Like, are we obtaining good health right now from the way our society is? I don't know. I wouldn't agree with that. The fact that processed food, like, is the system set up for us to obtain a positive yield for our human society? Maybe not. So that's principle 3. Principle 4 is apply self-regulation and feedback. So I feel like most communities do this, potentially. It depends who's running the show, but it's about self-regulation. It's like, am I the best person for this role? Am I doing the best job for this? Is the way the system working? Oh, I'm getting a lot of feedback in this area. There's a lot of people screaming to get out and not be so locked away. Is this for the better or not? So applying self-regulation feedback is a great way to live. Even in my life, having conversations and interactions through work. Am I performing the best way? Am I getting feedback in certain areas? How can I improve? In a family environment, listen to it's such a great principle to live by. Apply self-regulation feedback. Is the way I'm living working right now? I had to do self-regulation here. For those of you who watch my Insta stories, you already know that I will be moving from this beautiful home that I have at the moment, just due to wanting to simplify, but also, is this the best place? So I had to apply self-regulation financially and feedback. Like, is this the best way? Is this the best decision? And so forth. So it's a great principle to always be sort of regulating yourself and listening for feedback and getting feedback from people that you look up to and places you want to be and how they live. Principle number 5 is use and value renewables, using the power of the sun, wind, or water, rather than like using the oil and the things that are finite, the things using savings from our bank. I think it's great to have it as a backup. That's fine. But using something that that has an ending is just setting itself up for failure, and it's not thinking about it. I think there's a great quote by an Indian chief saying that we haven't inherited the earth, we're borrowing it from our children. And so that's a great way to look at, especially when you look at use value renewables. Let's make this a long-term success. Number 6 is produce no waste. I think everyone in this planet, especially here in Indonesia, you can see what waste is doing. It's suffocating the animals in the ocean. It's poisoning people from burning plastic. We need to align. Nature's waste is actually food for other organisms. Like the trees, leaves, and branches feed the microorganisms that ultimately feed the roots of the tree. It's just a beautiful cycle, beautiful food web. We need to align with that. Number 7 is design from patterns to details. So another way of looking at that is look at this holistically on a grander scale. Don't just design the waste system by thinking about the waste system. Design the waste system thinking about how products and food are made, and look at it holistically. Look at the products. When products are built, think of the waste. So no longer should any company that invents anything ever invent it without knowing how it can be reused again, and without no waste. So those can integrate together. Number 6 and 7, design from patterns to details holistically. Number 8 is integrate, don't segregate. This is absolutely beautiful. Plants, they are diverse. You can look at a 10 centimeter square or 1 foot square bit of nature, and there is so much of it all working together. Little ants are doing this, little bugs doing this, the trees helping that cover that tree, the saplings covering the seedling. It's all integrated together. And so integrate our communities together, co-create, collaborate, cooperation. It's something that we can all do together. Yeah, it's something that we're all learning to do. We're in a society where it's like, get your, work hard, win life. You're out there on your own. It's just like, actually, how do we all help one another? Number 9 is use small and slow solutions. We're in a world that loves instant gratification, primal brain, and we can't blame ourselves, but if we want the world to succeed, we need to use our prefrontal cortex and use small and slow solutions rather than grand and fast solutions, potentially like locking down a whole city. It might have been needed. I'm not saying that it's not. I don't know the answers to this, but it's just a great thing to question when you look at it aligned with the principles of permaculture. Number 10 is use and value diversity. I've talked about diversity in the garden. No, you don't see in nature anywhere where one thing is growing. We don't nature doesn't monocrop. It's completely variety, and there's strength in diversity. There's strength in having a community that has someone from every different angle of life, whether it's different races, different experiences, different economies, different, all sorts of things coming together and communicating with one another from these different ways. You're going to find a stronger way of moving forward when we take into that idea of diversity. How do we make the majority and help happy and move forward, and then go back to fire and self-regulate and feedback and come back? And there's strength in diversity. Number 11 is use edges and value the marginals. This is another way of saying think outside the box. In permaculture, you look at that little corner of space that's just space, and can that be used in a really beneficial way for the whole garden? Is there something you can plant there that actually will start to produce a yield, which is number 3. And thinking outside the box in life and in how we're doing things. You know, the one answer is fear is to shut down and hide. But what happens if we think outside the box and go, you know what? Okay, people aged like, all right, all stores, I mean, some countries have done it. All stores must have a temperature reading. You know, you create a system where life can go on, but there's just a few adjustments. Like you have to wear a mask, but then you can't go into a certain store if you've got a fever. It's all right. Keep the people that are sick away and let other people still continue to live life so that their mental health is fine and they can get themselves fit and stuff. So it's rather than quick, let's just hide, let's look outside the box. Okay, we know that nursing homes are the ones hardest hit. What happens if we segregate nursing home and help everyone adopts an old person, and you know, obviously a family that has no COVID and has been proven, brings an old person into their home, they look after them. You know, I don't know. I'm just thinking off the cuff, but that's the whole idea of principle number 11 is use edges and value the marginals. Think outside the box with these solutions. And number 12, creatively use and respond to change. You know, change is happening a lot at the moment. You know, the world was going around. You know, there hasn't been a disruption like this since one of the wars, I would imagine, since I've been alive. This is the first major global change that's happened. There's not one person that can escape the concept of, oh, my life changed a bit because of COVID. Like everyone on this planet is experiencing that at the moment, unless you're hidden in a jungle somewhere and just enjoying life and have completely missed all of this, then awesome. But yeah, creatively use and respond to change, which again, I think is thinking outside the box, and it's thinking about the future. It's thinking about designing for the change, the changing seasons, thinking about now that we know that this kind of thing can happen, how do we prevent it? What can we do? You know, again, that's applying self-regulation and feedback. So there's something really gentle about these principles. If we, you know, and I've seen the success of a few permaculture gardens, and there's this very peaceful energy. It's this real alignment with nature that creates the kind of world I would like to live in. I think that's it. And coming back to that Buckminster Fuller quote is like, you know, create a model that you want to live in, rather than fighting and tensing up and anger and fear and frustration. And I mean, those emotions are all very important, and life is 50-50, no doubt. What you can do though is choose a life that you want to live. And that's what's got me thinking, is that these 12 principles are definitely, they align with me. And as I look at moving to another area, I want to start really thinking about this holistically. Design from patterns to details. I want to see that wherever I move, I can start to bring in these principles, and even just the way I live my life right now. I feel like this is you know, some people say permaculture can be used like a religion in some sense. Some people can get quite dogmatic about it, and I think there's extremes in absolutely everything. But yeah, it certainly got me thinking, and what kind of world do I want to live in moving forward? And from what I've witnessed and experienced, those little micro worlds that I've visited that use these principles and these ethics feel really peaceful, feel really aligned with nature, and feel like a world that I would like to live in. So those are my contemplations for today. Thank you so much for listening. I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to reach out on Instagram or Facebook or on the website. Write some comments underneath the transcript. Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. I wish you a beautiful day. Bye for now. Hey, if you enjoyed listening to my podcast, remember to subscribe to hear more. You also have to come check out the Living Supplement Garden, a garden that reads your individual's body's condition and grows the substances it requires to move towards optimal health and potentially healing your ailments. When we align with nature, we thrive with nature. I'd love to have you join myself and others as we discover the magic of nature together and strive to heal both ourselves and our planet. Go to thrivingwithnature.com.